Welcome back to the Goal Line Stand, our 32 for 32 NFL preview series. I am Michael Lipinski. I am joined again by Brett Halpern, and we are talking New York football, Brett, but not the New York football that you like. We're talking the Jets. The Jets, Jets. I looked for my fire hat in honor of, what's his name, Fireman Ed. I couldn't find it. So it is what it is. But we're talking Jets football today. I'm very excited. They have nice uniforms.
You like those uniforms?
I don't hate them. I like them better than what they had. And I'm a white.
You like them. You like them better than so my issue with the previous generation of uniforms, which kind of likened back to the Joe Namath era, I didn't like the shade of green. I would have liked closer to a Kelly green or just brighten it up, which they had for their Color Rush uniform.
Right. It was a little bit brighter.
I like it was a little brighter. I didn't like it was pale almost.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, I guess.
Yeah.
I like the new ones. I should say I don't hate them, I guess, is the best way to put it. I like the helmet.
Okay.
I like the overall.
The helmet needs a stripe.
You in the stripes. You get on me for being a white helmet guy. You think everything needs a stripe. It doesn't need a stripe. Stripes
are good.
They got
stripes bring order to the universe.
Too many stripes on the jerseys.
Well, that's different. That's piping stripes. I don't get into that. I don't mind it. I like the color. So, for instance, if they use that shade, or for instance, the shade circa mid '80s,
right,
on the old uniform, I'd have been much happier. I do not like their black uniform.
No, the black uniform
that's ugly. That's ugly.
It's good old black for black's sake. No use. Yeah. No use for having it. It doesn't really work well. Black and green, although we're using it here on this here, it actually doesn't look bad here. If I say so myself,
that's because everything we do is great.
Right? Yeah, it doesn't look good when it's on that uniform.
It's interesting. So, there's one other thing I'd like to talk about the Jets before we get into the actual team, which I found really interesting. So, this past fall, I had the opportunity to go to a game with my cousin. My cousin and my uncle, they have season tickets. And
is that an I'm sorry or?
Well, no. So first, it was really awesome. We actually got field passes. So I was on the turf, and so I was getting emotional because it's also the Giants field.
Does it count the same way though?
I mean, look, it wasn't the same. Look, what was cool is it was the Monday night game against the Patriots. So, I mean, watching Tom Brady, it just whatever you think of him, the guy is really good. And it's actually a lot bigger in person, by the way, even though he's fairly slim. And it was just cool. It was cool. You really, I mean, that stadium is big. And when you're all the way down on the field and look up, like I was looking up at my seats, I'm like, wow, that's a long ways away.
Well, I was hoping to be on that field come this December. That's not going to happen now, but it's neither here nor there.
Yeah, that's a whole other can of worms. We'll get to on a main episode of the Goal Line Stand. Check us out all social media at GL Stand Show. I'm becoming a pro at that.
Very good.
Anyways, what I did want to point out was the Jets are by far superior as compared to the Giants with respect to the presentation of the game for fans in the stadium. It is night and day, so much better.
Is it more of an experience when you go to a Jet game versus
way more
a game?
Yeah, and so I remember you came with me the first ever time I went to a game at MetLife Stadium. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, it was preseason.
Yeah, it was a preseason game against the Steelers.
The back of the refrigerators, what it looked like.
Yes,
that's what I likened it to.
But the other issue that people have is you can't find a clock. What time is it? At the Jet games, it's there. It is such a better in stadium experience for Jet games. I hope someone from the Giants is listening to this because I wrote to them at length about it, but I hope maybe because we're such a popular show that they should now take us even more seriously. I wanted to just throw this out there.
Why do you think that is? Do you think that is it a team versus team thing?
Yeah, because each team just uses whatever they have differently. You got to remember, it is also the voice. It's their PA guy is the Rutgers guy.
Yes, I know.
Yeah. But so there's a familiarity to it, but it is so much better. The graphics in the stadium are better. I mean, I don't understand how any Giant
green is
front
better
office
than
guy.
Green is better than Giant Blue.
Okay, well, guess what? Giant Blue has more Super Bowls than this green and your green.
Nobody's debating the Super Bowl. I'm talking about color.
Listen, no, you were taking a shot, so
Okay.
I'm defending. But but I don't understand how someone from the Giants front office does not. They have to be in the stadium for a Jet game and be like, "This is so much better." The Giant, it sucks, and this is so much better.
Hey Jim, come here and look at this shit. You know they got a clock up there. They got a clock.
It is so much better. I'm telling you, it is. I the entire time I'm like sitting there telling my cousin. This is when the Patriots like were winning 35-0.
So you
at halftime that game.
Yeah,
there's nothing else going on except for a bunch of really overhyped Patriot fans sitting right next to us, which sucked. But I was like, this is such a greater experience. Meanwhile, they're losing 35-0, so my cousins like didn't really want to hear it. But look, these things count to me. So okay. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Well, it is interesting. It's interesting because it is the same building and a different approach.
Yeah.
I can say the times that I've been up there for games, it's only been Giants. It's very a vanilla experience. It's disappointing almost because it's this big fancy building and it's just
it's gray. Everything is freaking gray.
Yeah.
The palace of neutrality. That's what my father called it.
Yeah, that's a good nickname for it. Let's get into it. Let's get into the New York Jets. 2019 record 7-9, third place in the AFC East. Let's run it down. A couple big things, some nice acquisitions, some interesting opt-outs, to say the least. What are your thoughts here?
Well, I guess we'll start with the acquisitions. I think there's some decent ones here. Pierre Desir's a nice cornerback. He'll start for the Jets on defense. The Jets, and we're going to probably talk about this more, their offensive line desperately needed help, and they at least attempted to address it both in the draft, which we'll get to, and then in free agency with George Fant, Connor McGovern, and then Greg Van Roten. George Fant, coming from Seattle, he's athletic. I think he might be a decent right tackle. He can't really stay healthy. That's one of his issues. And obviously, the most important ability out there is availability. So this could be an issue. Connor McGovern, I think, will be an upgrade at center. The Jets had signed Matt Khalil. Which is the older Khalil? Ryan Khalil, excuse me.
Right. Correct.
Yeah, Ryan. I sometimes I get him confused. He signed him to a 1-year deal, but he was just way over the hill. Brashad Perriman, who was a former first-round draft pick, kind of resurrected his career last year down in Tampa. He was a former first-round pick of the Ravens, and he's really going to be counted on to be one of the top weapons.
It's interesting because he was a very popular name in free agency because of what he did a year ago.
For 1 year, which is weird because to me, I kind of like to look at the whole. I mean, granted,
exactly.
you want to trend positively, but like where was he the first few seasons? So all in all, a decent free agency class. In terms of the departures, obviously, we recently added Jamal Adams to that list because of the trade. Robbie Anderson coming from Temple, really, as an undrafted free agent, made a name for himself. He's sort of a little difficult to deal with, and I think they're going to miss the big play capability, and that's where they think Perriman is going to replace that. I don't know if he will. The other guys on that list are really not guys who you're going to particularly miss. So all in all, the biggest name though is Jamal Adams, and the top two, he and Robbie Anderson. It really does deplete, I think, just the talent level of the team. And then the COVID opt out with C.J. Mosley.
Right.
Yeah, no worries. That's really big. I mean, they signed him to a monster contract 2 years ago, last offseason.
Right.
And last year he barely played. I think he played in like 3 games. He was hurt most of the season, and now he's out the entire year. And look, I'm not like we've said for each of these. Everyone has their reason, and we hope everyone stays safe. Both players that are playing as well as those that opt out. But this is definitely something they're going to miss. He was the quarterback of the Ravens defense, and that's what they were anticipating he'd be for the Jets. Josh Doxson, who was another former first-round pick for the Redskins, who never really, clicked. The Jets were hoping that, new surroundings might help him out, but they're going to have to wait a year. So,
yeah, they are going to have to wait a year. Let's see what happens. I mean,
yeah,
you got to be disappointed if you're the Jets. I understand the situation, but you're really expecting one thing, and now you're thrown into this situation. You have to get something completely different.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the only benefit, and we haven't really talked about this in general, it tolls everybody's contract. So I guess in a way you're getting C.J. Mosley for another year.
Yeah, you are.
Then he's going to also be older.
Yeah, he's going to be older by age, but not by wear and tear on the body. So
True.
Maybe that really makes a difference. I don't know.
But yeah, I know. But at some point, you could be fresh and never played, but if you're 50 years old, you're still 50. He's not 50. I'm just
right. That is true. I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Let's check out their draft. What was your thought on this? I didn't hate it. It didn't have the Taylor. I mean, it didn't have the Joe Douglas signature to it that I was expecting.
So there are parts I liked and there are parts I did not like. So Mekhi Becton, it's a very interesting pick. That is going to be a boom or bust. This kid is either going to be a top level all pro monster or he's going to be a bust. So he is and we talked about this in the mock draft show. There were 4 top offensive linemen. Amongst them, Mekhi Becton was one of them. His thing, he is gigantic. I think he's about 6'7.5". Right now, he's in the 370-pound range. And amazingly, at the combine, he ran a 5'1". And I mean, and he's actually, when you see him, and particularly in the combine where they're wearing kind of, those leotard-looking outfits, he's put together. He's not sloppy for 370 pounds, which is pretty amazing.
6'7", 370.
Yeah. He has said himself, unfortunately, because of COVID, that he wasn't really able to work out the way he wanted to. He'd like to get down to about 350. And I think he has the right idea there. I think he's a lot more agile and mobile and hostile. But this guy, I mean, he has wow plays where he will literally just throw people. But he needs to work a lot on his technique. But he generally seems to be a coachable kid. So that's where I think I'm more hopeful for him than a guy who coming in the league a few years ago, like Eric Flowers, there were reports that he was just not a coachable guy. I like Denzel Mims, a second rounder from Baylor, and he's another guy that they're going to count on heavily. He really improved his draft stock at the combine because he ran in the 4.3s for a guy who's, I think he's like 6'3" or 6'4", 215. So he's got a lot of size. Ashton Davis is an interesting safety, kind of a do-it-all, really good athlete. I remember someone like kind of comparing him, even though different positions, to Jason Sehorn in the sense of the athleticism. But he's a safety, and I would also say he's more aggressive. Jason Sehorn was never known to come up and stick you. I mean, he was a good cover corner for a little while, but Ashton,
he didn't want to hit anybody.
No, he didn't want to hit anyone. He had very good interceptions though, but that was sorry, little dig. Sorry.
No, I wasn't taking a shot when I said he.
He was known to be a pretty boy. That was Jabari Zuniga, I think, has some talent. LaMichael Pirine, same thing. To me, the biggest issue I had with this draft class was the first of those 2 4th-round picks. James Morgan from Florida International. I don't even know if I thought he was going to be drafted, and if so, I thought he was going to be drafted in the 7th round. To waste a 4th rounder on him. I mean, you have Sam Darnold. Why do you need to draft? I know there are people who believe, you have to draft a quarterback every year. Okay, so if you have a kid in Sam Darnold who you believe is your future and is going into his 3rd year, then draft someone in the 7th round. Why are you wasting a 4th round pick on a quarterback?
You could draft someone in the 2nd round if you think you have a franchise quarterback. We'll get to that down the line here.
That's an excellent point.
As we're having this conversation and we're talking Jets, I have NFL Network on right behind us. And
oh yeah,
and I'm watching said draft pick from the 2nd round.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Well, yeah, that is something that we were going to talk about a lot. But anyways, back to the other green team, the Jets. James Morgan, a decent quarterback prospect. I didn't see him as a 4th rounder to begin with, let alone why are the Jets in particular taking him. I do like Bryce Hall from Virginia, the cornerback. I think that he has some good potential. So, decent draft class. I mean, there's a few guys, particularly in the first few rounds there, that I think could be key, like cornerstone players of this team moving forward. And look, if they turn out to be that, then this is a great draft. But the 4th round pick to me, that was a waste.
Right. Just interesting. It was interesting. I think, me personally, I expected more of the Baltimore model from Joe Douglas, which he's done elsewhere. Was very influential in Philadelphia. I kind of expected to see a little bit more of that, and it seemed like maybe that was not the case. But how much ultimate power did he have going into this? There was always that kind of conversation. It's a little bit more of Joe Douglas's team versus Adam Gase.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, that'll be better for them. So
4 burning questions for the New York Jets in 2020. Does Sam Darnold take the next step? I am not very sold on Sam Darnold. I think there's been flashes. I don't like USC quarterbacks. I just, for whatever reason,
because you don't like Pete Carroll.
He wasn't there. It has nothing to do with it.
It's the stain of Pete Carroll. Just a minute.
It could be. It has nothing to do with Pete Carroll. But there's just something about guys that come out of there, whether it's the Pac-12 thing, but they peak at USC and they don't peak when they get to the pros. Tell me the last guy. Who is it? I don't even know.
Carson Palmer.
Probably right. So that's going back to what? 04? 05? Yeah. I'm just trying to think of the video game cover.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So does Darnold take the next step?
I'm not completely convinced on him being the guy or being a legitimate top 10 quarterback in this league. But here's the other problem. Look at what's surrounding him now. Right? I mean, well, so 2 things. First, after he got back from the mono last year, again, it's kind of weird that a guy, had mono, but whatever. This team last year was not talented, and they were 7-9. So they found ways to win. I think also Greg Williams got a lot out of that defense. I'm sure we'll talk about that. But particularly this year, though, I'm still not entirely sold on that offensive line. And the receiving core, I think, took a hit when you lost Robbie Anderson. You have an aging Le'Veon Bell. So what is he throwing to? What's surrounding him? I don't even know if you can truly evaluate him.
You didn't even give him you always give a quarterback a tight end.
Well, they have a good tight end, Chris Herndon he's a good tight end. But he last year was suspended a few games.
So I agree with you. It's one of these things. You haven't given the dude enough weapons. You invest in a quarterback, but then you don't invest with what's around him.
Exactly. It's just a lot of, and I think that's kind of the theme for this team, particularly now also with CJ Mosley opting out. There's not a lot of top tier talent anywhere. I mean, Jamal Adams is gone. He was by far the best player. It's just so again, how do wow.
So
look at that.
I think we answered the Darnold thing. How can you take the next step if you don't have the ability, if you don't have the weapons to take the next step? You just mentioned them. Jamal Adams. Does this trade make sense?
You know what? Even though it has depleted them in the short term, this trade made sense, and I
I
thought they
agree.
got a good deal. Look, this team was not one player away; they are several players away, and as much as I respect Jamal Adams and I respect the great safeties before him, I don't think you build a team around the safety. I just don't believe.
Yeah, I mean,
It's just not.
it's very rare that you build a team around a safety. There's
Yeah.
only been a handful of guys, and they're all in the Hall of Fame or will be Hall of Famers that you've done it. And he's not that kind of guy.
No, and look, even all of those guys had other players. I would
Absolutely.
argue Brian Dawkins probably had the least amount of players with him, but still had a good. I mean, you had
Oh
Schroeder,
yeah,
you had
absolutely.
the D line, you had excellent cornerbacks,
Right.
few generations of them.
Yep, absolutely. Agreed completely.
So again, and I'm all for building up the middle. Have really good D tackles, have a good middle linebacker, have a good safety. But just having one really good safety is not going to get it done. And again, you need to get more talent, and a way to do that is to acquire assets. They got a lot, and they got a starter in Bradley McDougald in connection with it. But I think the trade made a lot of sense for the Jets, and he was talking. I mean, he was just running
Talk,
his mouth. You
talking.
can't run your mouth the way he did
You can't run
and
your
stay
mouth.
on the team.
You can run your mouth the way he did if you're in Arizona. If you're in some non-huge, you can't do it in New York. You
You
can't.
definitely can't do it. And so he actually, just like his father, is a washout as a first round pick for a New York football team. So
Where does the defense stand without Jamal Adams?
I would say that they're a tough bunch of guys.
And
It is
CJ
not.
Mosley too. I think you got to factor in here now too.
Yeah,
So
that's
that
an
changes
excellent
the
point.
equation.
Yeah, it definitely. Oh, absolutely. It's a tough bunch of guys. And I think, in spite of their limited talent, what's his name? Greg Williams got the most out of these guys. I think, the key to the success of this team, they got to generate a pass rush from somebody. And particularly, they don't have a lot on the edge. That's one thing. They're a little slow in the front seven. But another guy who I think really needs to step up was their first round pick from last year, Quinnen Williams, who I really like. I mean, it's amazing how now this is like the third guy who was considered a top defensive tackle in the past 20 years coming into the draft class that the Jets have drafted, who underperformed, at least in the rookie year. You had Dwayne Robertson. Remember that kid from Kentucky? This
Yeah.
was
Yep.
like 12, 13 years ago. And then you had Leonard Williams, who, well, it's okay, because Dave Gettleman thinks he's amazing. So that's all that matters. And then you have Quint.
Hey, listen, Dave Gettleman for the main show. Okay.
I know. And then Quinnen Williams, though, I loved coming out of Alabama. I'm hoping he takes the next step next year because I really like his game. They're also really stout against the run. So it's a scrappy defense that, again, they give you everything they have, and it's not a top 10 unit, but particularly, but it's hard to run against them. And I think they'll fare okay. They'll keep the team in some games.
We have a little bit of a vested interest in one of their defensive backs, a former Rutgers guy. I like him. He was often hurt, which really affected him in college. But Blasson Austin, when healthy, was often talked about being a top, well, I guess, old round day one draft pick. Top 3 round kind of guy, probably second, third. But can he contribute? Can he contribute for the Jets? Or is this just us looking at it with scarlet colored eyes?
Well, I mean, we always do that, but look, he came in last year towards the latter end of the season and was starting and did very well. I've been reading some reports from some of the Jet beat writers, and supposedly right now he is a backup, which is disappointing. But I think he's definitely going to make the roster, And I look, he's got to stay healthy, and that's the thing. He hasn't been able to stay healthy in consecutive years, going back literally since high school. So that's the problem. That's
he has never been healthy through
but
college.
yeah. But I think if healthy, knock on wood, and I'm always rooting for him. I think he can not only contribute, I think he can be a really good player and a building block for that defense. I really do, and particularly as a 7th-round pick for them, that's really good value.
Absolutely. Jets fans, if you enjoyed this, please throw us a subscribe, a thumbs up, drop a comment, tell us what you think. We like to interact. Follow us on all social at GL Stand Show. We will have our big preview of the National Football League coming up at the end of our 32 for 32. Tomorrow on the 32 for 32, we go to the Anchor Bar. We get ourselves some wings. We go talk about your Buffalo Bills. It's going to be exciting. I'm Mike. That's Brett. We'll catch you tomorrow.